Alright, we're making this a family project, right?
Yep.
You gonna help?
Yes.
Get to work.
Okay. So.
Alright guys, so I'm gonna go over the horizontal tail portion, the assembly for that, the vertical and the rudder. Finishing up the tail surfaces first so we can get those ready to cover. Then I'm going to go through some of the flight control assembly. All the flight controls are now in, checked. Some of the work already been done, and so I had to go back and verify, make sure everything was done correctly. And for the most part it was. I had to reverse some bolts, find some minor stuff. Went ahead and took the brake master cylinders out because we're going to be doing that Behringer brake setup, and I'll have an update on that shortly. We're going to be able to offer a Kitfox kit for the Behringer very soon, so we're excited about that. And that C-pan's in. Been working out kind of a plan with the instrument panel, and I'll get some feedback from you guys on some of the stuff I'm looking at there. So follow along for this video. I'm going to throw in a little bit of flying just because I don't want these to be too boring. So there's some good shots I got flying a couple of weeks back. So we're going to throw those in, and then I'll actually put a link to the dedicated video for that. It's going to be called Hill Landings. So check that out. It'll be up here. And yep, stay tuned for more updates.
Bye.
So real quick, let's go over some of the options that this kit has. Starting out with the Speedster tail kit, dual brake kit, adjustable rudder pedals, have the lighter brake pedals, the Puka pedals. Came with the prefab kit for the fuselage, which is all the brackets. Has a light smoked windshield upgrade, and then both bubble doors that are also tinted gray, and the cargo bay cargo kit. Okay, with the wing kit, I got the quick build wing. It's got the Laker leading edge, the composite leading edge for it. Came with a trim position sensor, low level fuel warning system. The wing lift strut speed kits included, also the tip fairings for the flaperons, and they are asymmetrical flaperons. It's got the fuel cap fairings, trim assist for the elevator. Also came with the rudder taillight housing for the Aero LED sun taillight, and it also has the Aero LED micro sun landing lights. Alright guys, I'm going to go over some of the work that's been done. So all the reaming's been done on all the powder coat parts on the tail. And then the airfoil ribs have been put in place, glued, and then the supports for those have also been glued in place. So the elevator here, you can see, is pretty much ready to cover, except for the wing tips, or the tips of it need to be shaped a little bit more with some super fill and sanded down. Okay, on the fuselage, the trim actuator has been put in place. It's not connected to the horizontal stabilizer because it's not on the aircraft yet, but everything's been mocked up, and then the horizontal was removed. On the vertical stabilizer, all the airfoils have been glued in place with Hysol, and then the fairing that goes on the aft end of it has been cut and trimmed to fit and glued in place. Show you the rudder here. I've temporarily placed it on. The aft fairing for the vertical stabilizer has been glued in place and fitted, and the rudder fairing is in place. However, it's not glued, and after trying to get this thing on for a while, I realized that it's also not cut properly. We need to cut the relief on the side of the fairing here so you can get the bolt in and out. So temporarily, you can see I have just zip tie wire running through there to hold it on because I can't get the bolt in there the way the fairing is. So there needs to be a slot cut here on all three positions of the fairing on just one side only. The other thing is up on top here, if we can see. It's shaped with balsa wood but not completed, so I've been looking at different ways to do that. There's some, areas where the balsa wood's not really attached here. If you can see that. So that needs some work. There's been some debate whether to use foam or balsa wood there. I don't really think there's a real difference at this stage. It already has balsa wood on it, so I'll finish that up. But up on top where there's a groove cut, it needs to either have high sol or super fill put in to finish off the shape. I've been reading most of you guys recommend kind of a combination of the high sol, sand it with 80 grit, and finish it with the super fill for a nice finished look. So that's the way I'll go. I think I have some super fill down at the hanger, but it's probably past its expiration date. I do have the high sol from the kit. So once I get the fairing cut and glued in place, then I'm going to do the top pieces of both the vertical stabilizer and the rudder. Again, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Up here, this needs to be filled in smooth and just in general finished. It's not. Okay, so just finished cutting the bolt access holes in the rudder fairing. So you can see these little slits up here, the vertical ones, or the ones I cut out, that's so you can get that bolt in there, and a wrench on it. And so same thing at the midway one. The bottom one didn't need it because it already has the slot cut on the bottom. All right guys, good morning. It is the next day. Still wearing my shop uniform here. I've got the rudder mounted up temporarily. I went ahead and glued the fairing in place with high sol. I also, you can see up top, put the extra high sol in place up there to shape the top of the rudder. I'm going to do the same thing for the top of the elevator, or top of the vertical stabilizer. And then I also just ordered up some super fill. Okay, I'm finishing up the rudder right now. So you can see from the previous pictures I posted that this needed some fill work on top to make the airfoil shape on top of the rudder. It's not huge important other than cosmetically. So this has been covered in high sol with some micro balloons, and I'm going to use 80 grit sandpaper to sand down the shape. And then I've got some super fill to go in on top to finish off the shape. And as I get close, then I'm going to mount it back up again and do the vertical stabilizer to match it so everything works together. But right now I've got to just clean up the over application of this stuff to get it down to where I can line it up with the other one and then get a nice shape. And that will finish up the rudder. It'll be ready for cover. So I'm going to get started on the sanding. Okay, so the tail access cover angle installation has been completed. That's where all this aluminum has been placed around the area that's going to have a fairing on the tail that can be removed for inspection. Okay, and here's a horizontal stabilizer. Again, the airfoil shapes have been glued in place. All the reaming's been done for the powder coated sections that need to be that powder coating gets inside where the bolts go, and so you have to ream those out, make sure they're back to normal size. And then the same thing for the tips. They need a little bit more work to have the final shape accomplished by putting some more super fill and doing some more sanding. Okay, and the door frame's been completed. Everywhere there's a little joint in the metal still needs to have some super fill put in and have a final sanding so it's a nice smooth continuous edge all the way around that will help the covering job look real good. And then all the controls have been put in for the flight controls for the flaperons and for the elevator and rudder. The rudder cables have not been connected yet, but the elevator tubes are in place. There may need to be some final adjusting on the length. The flap mixer or flaperon mixer is in place. And the pulley wheels have been placed for the rudder cables. And then the belt crank has been put in place also for the front yoke assembly. And I didn't show this front yoke assembly, but that's all been done as well. on the phone all morning. Started by calling John McMean at Kitfox. Super helpful. He's excited, I think, that I'm doing this build with the Apex. We talked about that a little bit. And I think I'm still pretty much on my own when it comes to doing the Apex. He's excited about the potential there, but they're not at a point, especially with how busy they are with the backlog, where they're able to focus on doing a firewall forward. I wanted to make sure that they weren't going to be developing one while I'm trying to solve all the same problems, because if I focus my attention on the build and save the firewall forward and they were working on it, maybe the timing would line up where I could just order it from them. But it sounds like they're not going to be doing that anytime soon. Not to say they won't do it at all, but that kind of leaves me back to solving some of those problems on my own. So the other person I called and talked to today was Steve Henry. We've flown together quite a bit at the High Sierra, raced together, and so I considered Steve a friend. And although I'm not building a Highlander, he was still willing to talk to me about the Apex engine. So I'm going to head out probably later next month and go see Steve and see how his project's coming along. I'll take a camera along with me, and if he's okay with me filming anything, I'll take you guys along on that trip. But I'll also stop by the Kitfox factory because I need to take some measurements on this firewall forward. I need to find out where to place the engine, and without a cowling and any sort of point of reference of where the Rotax engine terminates or where the prop flange is located. And it's not just how far forward, but basically I need to know how far forward, how far down, so that I can work out this engine mount. So there's some things I need to measure with that and talk to John about at the factory. So I think the best way to do it, instead of trying to ask these questions over the phone, is just go over there, and hopefully they've got one far enough along where there's a fuselage with a Rotax mounted to it, and I can take some measurements and figure it out. I asked a question on the Facebook page and on the forum about the location of that flange. Haven't had anyone get back to me yet with a real good answer. So I think best way is just go out to the factory. Might haul some snowmobiles out there and have some fun on that trip while I'm doing that. But anyway, so talked to John this morning, talked to Steve. I was on the phone quite a bit with Behringer trying to work out this brake system. They don't, like I said earlier, they don't have a set kit for the Kitfox as far as the Behringer system. I'm working with them on that, and when I'm done and it all works, either you guys can contact me and I'll tell you exactly what part numbers you need, or I will have them package it in a kit and put it in their catalog, because they're kind of missing out. They should be marketing this system because it's great. Alright guys, I think I'm going to wrap this one up here, and I'll get another one out to you as I'm continually working on this project. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for further updates on the build.
Now,